Today marks 31 years since a deadly air disaster near Charlotte Douglas International Airport as a USAir flight crashed on the approach on a stormy night. Chief Transportation Correspondent MayCay Beeler spoke with two professionals who worked the crash scene. They reflect on what they call the most tragic event they've ever witnessed.
The plane broke into three sections when it crashed on approach to Charlotte Douglas International Airport.
I've seen the results of war, I've seen the results of famine, but to see this in my own backyard really just struck me.
Parts of the wreckage slammed into a house, which officials say was unoccupied at the time.
Something that stays with you, and it's something that doesn't just go away. You don't just forget about it. It's a very lasting memory.
Several crash victims suffered serious burns, others had broken bones.
I can still visualize seeing the aircraft over there, seeing it in the trees, and it's pretty sobering.
USAir says all 5 crew members survived, apparently without critical injuries.
I was probably like most people that worked the site that day. I was sunburned, I was dehydrated, I was emotionally, physically, mentally worn out because you've seen things that people should not have to see.
Investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board have recovered the plane's flight recorders, which could provide clues into the cause of last night's crash. Mark Rumsey, Charlotte, North Carolina.
It was July 3rd, 1994, the morning after one of the darkest days in Charlotte aviation history. That's when Colonel Steve Martin and photojournalist Terrace Allen found themselves working a smoldering gravesite.
It really shakes you to your core.
You look at life a little bit differently when you see death on a large scale, when you see how fragile life can be.
The colonel served as the disaster preparedness officer for the 145th Airlift Wing of the North Carolina Air National Guard. His job that day was to direct the body recovery. Of the 57 people on board USAir Flight 1016, 37 died in the fiery crash.
It was a day when the first body that you recover is an infant and you're a parent. That gives you a different perspective on everything.
For Allen, it wasn't just another day covering breaking news.
The thing that stood out to me was standing there and seeing broken up fuselage and the debris field, and standing there looking at the flight deck or the cockpit of this DC-9, and we're really like a few feet from it. And I was thinking, my goodness, I just felt so bad for the people involved.
It was one of the worst air disasters in Charlotte history. The National Transportation Safety Board concluded the crash was the result of wind shear, rapidly shifting winds from a thunderstorm-induced microburst, a violent downdraft that slammed the McDonnell Douglas DC-9 to the ground. It happened in the blink of an eye after the pilots aborted a landing during an intense rainstorm on approach to the airport.
When you see everything from children to older people that have died in a terrible manner, no one should die in that manner. And when you see that, it does change you because you look at life a little bit differently. You have a different perspective on how things can be nice and peaceful and calm one minute, and the next minute it can be a disaster.
Although a few previous wind shear accidents had made headlines, little was known about the destructive forces of microbursts at the time. Retired United Airlines captain and aero consulting expert Ross Amer says almost all regulations and safety rules are written in blood. Crashes like USAir 1016 were valuable lessons in how we deal with one of the greatest forces in nature, the weather.
Before 1994 and this terrible disaster, there was limited detection of wind shear. And so after this disaster and after 1994, Congress really pushed the FAA on getting these terminal Doppler radar systems installed at various airports across the country that oftentimes have to deal with severe weather, including Charlotte.
No words can lessen the grief of the families of the loved ones lost on Flight 1016.
But significant changes and new safety measures were put into place as a direct
result of that accident. Better pilot training, better decision making, thunderstorm avoidance, better understanding of weather prediction and wind shear detection. All of that a game changer, making USAir Flight 1016 the last U.S. airliner to perish in wind shear. There is a new airport overlook at Charlotte Douglas International Airport. It is chock full of play space, a happy place of family fun, laughter, kids full of life. In stark contrast, just yards away, sits the memorial for USAir Flight 1016, a solemn place to remember, reflect, and pay respects to all affected by the crash.
It is an interesting place to put the memorial, in a place of such happiness. When you go by and see that memorial, it reminds you, put all your petty beefs away with people, hug your wife, hug your kids, hug your family members. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. Those people got on that plane knowing that they were going on a vacation or going on business or doing whatever they had to do. And now 37 of them aren't here anymore.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.